Yeah, that's the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Kallas Remarks with the host, Joe Staszak. Of course, my co-host right there, the star of the show, Steve Kallas. Steven, this is usually the podcast that really kind of I get sent into a depressive state. It's after the Super Bowl. You got 7 months to go. We're digging
Not
up
this year.
digging up basketball stories the best we can. Ovi's about to break Gretzky's record. Not this year, my friend. You're not going to see me without a smile on my face for a long time. Parade
Hey,
today. Parade is today. We'll get back. We'll touch on that a little bit before we go. Covered it pretty well. Johnny's not with us. Johnny did a great job covering the NFL as you did as well. Nothing and nobody else I'd rather be with than you two guys talking football, talking playoffs. I just can't get enough. But I'm satisfied right now. If you win your last game, if you win your you only you win your last game, you said it like Billy Beane said. If you don't win your last game, then what the hell does it matter? You know what I mean? Like what are we doing? So Eagles won the last game, and we'll touch on them a little bit. I mentioned Ovi. We'll start with hockey today because it's February, break's coming up. We talked about that four-team international thing that doesn't include like the Russians and Ovi. And Ovi's 16 goals away from breaking the Great Ones record, a record I never thought would be busted. His points and his assists and his goals just dominant. But Ovi's there. I mean, what a consistent player since I think '07 or '06 when he was drafted by the Capitals, number one, the year after Crosby was drafted number one by the Penguins. And he, barring a major injury, which he already had one this year, he's already come back for it and is scoring.
incredible.
He's
Yeah,
ahead of where he was last year when he only had like 9 goals at the All-Star break.
that's
But
right.
your thoughts? He's coming.
Well, he's going to break the record. I mean, it's just incredible to me that he could arguably break it this year because he only needs 16. As you said, he had 9 at the All-Star break. I remember saying, I don't think you did. I don't know. Is he done? He's old. He's taken a lot of beatings and beaten up a lot of guys. The difference between him and Crosby is he's a fighter. He doesn't take any guff from anybody. And not knocking Crosby, he's got 3 cups and Ovi has one, but Crosby needed protection, and a lot of superstars need protection. Ovechkin is the one who doesn't. So I kind of like him for that. And I'll say it again, when he came into the league, I still think there was a bit of an anti-Russian bias. And we'll talk about the All-Star games. I'm putting those in quotes in a second. But I'm a bit troubled he couldn't play in this four-nation whatever. But I will give the NHL credit for this, Joe, because I watched a little of Canada and Sweden. And when I saw the very first goal that Canada scored, it was McDavid to Crosby to McKinnon, like tic-tac-toe, one it tied up the game actually. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, who's beating these guys? But the
Amazing.
US, the US has a bomb squad. They beat Finland. Finland is like fourth out of four here. The USA beat Finland 6-1 last night, and Brady Tkachuk and Matthew Tkachuk both had 2 goals. First time brothers in international play had not only scored a goal, played together, but scored a goal, and then
That,
each of them had two
that's
goals.
cool.
Um, and the big game's going to be Saturday night, 8 o'clock. It's on ABC national TV, USA against Canada. That's going to be a real good game. But the credit I give them for, because usually, you know what, I talk about all-star games all the time, other than baseball. In these games, these guys are playing hard. And why are they playing hard? They're playing for their country. It's a big difference than let's go out and have a
Hmm.
10-8 all-star game because we're not going to check anybody or anything. These games are for real. So I will give them credit for that. But I was disappointed. We talked about it all the time. And Ovechkin can't play in this? So let me read you what happened. There's some kind of thing now where Russia can't be in the Russia and Belarus can't play in international tournaments, and this is viewed, I guess, correctly as an
It's an
international.
international tournament.
So let me read what they said. This is from CBS News. With only the USA, Canada, Sweden, and Finland in the tournament, it leaves out some of the world's best players, like Alexander Ovechkin from Russia and David Pastrnak from the Czech Republic. ESPN reports the NHL, which is running the tournament, chose to go without a Russian team due to the ongoing war with Ukraine. Now, Ovechkin apparently is a big fan of Putin's. They like know each other and they hang out when so. I guess I can kind of understand that. But let me read you. I just looked at the forwards and the goalies that Russia could have had in the tournament. My solution would have been take the best four Russians or even the best eight Russians and give one or two to each of those teams. I get that it's international. You think these guys wouldn't play hard?
Of course they would.
So the top four forwards, Ovechkin, Malkin, Kucherov, and Panarin. Come on, who could argue if each team had one of those guys?
Right, right.
And here's the three goalies. I don't know if there's a fourth. Bobrovsky of the Panthers, Stanley Cup winner. Vasilevsky, Tampa Bay, multiple Stanley Cup
Loaded.
winner. And Shesterkin, who won the Vizina once or
Like
twice
three
in
of
the
the top
last year.
goaltenders in the league.
So I think it's kind of a shame that you're not allowed to participate because of the country you're from. And Pasternak has an even better argument, and he's a top player because where's the Czech Republic in all this? Nowhere. I just
I
think
mean,
they
it's
should have
it's
done it.
like, yeah.
Maybe next year they will, Joe. I just think they should have done that, but maybe next year they will because it's almost like discrimination,
What I mean, like,
especially
why
for a
would
guy
you
like
keep some? Right.
he's not even a Russian. He's from the Czech Republic.
You gotta do
But
something different. How do you distinguish why are you leaving some countries out?
well, we know the answer on Russia, and
Well, I
you
know
can make
the
an
answer
argument.
here, and it would be too big, but I mean,
Well, to have Finland in there, maybe they should have given four of them to Finland, and they would have been better because I think they're going to be a distant fourth in this tournament. Sweden took Canada to overtime.
Sweden's usually decent, but that's a good that's a good opening game.
Yep. So we'll see Saturday night, USA Canada. That's a big one.
So that's what we're doing now. We're watching international hockey, huh? Instead of like football playoffs. Maybe I am going to get depressed.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Little hoops action. It's been interesting with the Doncic trade and the fact that I think that it came out of LeBron's camp wasn't happy because no one consulted him, but like then the other side, well, we drafted your kid. He's a 6'2". He's not even a shooting guard. He's 6'2". You know what I mean? Like,
You got your wish. You got your wish.
you got your wish. The guy, he he's missed his last like 55 shots or something like that. He might have made a layup the other day. But like, yeah, you got your son. Like you got Doncic now. All right, so your boys in Dallas, you weren't going anywhere anyway. This is kind of like your replacement. This is the big name headliner that you're not going to be anymore, whether you leave or you retire. I am still amazed that LeBron is still one of the best players in the league at his age.
Yep.
And
Yep.
remember all the playoff games he has played put so much more mileage on his legs. His knees are fine. I mean, he's still smart. He still can play. It's
Well,
amazing.
I don't know if he cares because um, AD has some kind of new injury. He's
He's
out for a
injured
month.
too. Yeah, street
He's out
clothes
for
is
a
now
month.
injured again.
So I think if LeBron wants to go to a contender next year, because I don't think they're a contender with Doncic.
Oh,
He's
he's going to
great.
leave his son in LA now? Is that what he's doing?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he's so powerful he can work a deal to bring him with him.
A
Although
package deal.
maybe he realizes his son's not an NBA player. I mean, that's an open question. Is he really an NBA player? If his name was Joe
He
Smith,
averaged 5 points a game at USC. I know he had the heart attack and all. I get it, but it
yeah.
wasn't
Well,
like he was like, go ahead.
he got what he wanted to do. This is not Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. This is one of the greatest players ever, which a guy who may or may not even last in the league more than a year. They were doing that swing thing, G League, Lakers,
Yeah.
G League. Like they came in at the same time in the first game, I think. Maybe, I'm not sure, but they played together. That was his goal, but he has to see what I think most people are saying, maybe behind his back or quietly, that he's certainly not going to be, I don't think, even an average NBA player, never mind a really good NBA
Six
player.
two.
But I would think LeBron still wants to win one more. We talked about it over the years. He's not catching Jordan with
No,
six, but he's got four. I don't know where he goes to get two more.
he won't. I
So
mean,
he might leave at the end of the year. But you make a good point. If they're going to make a commitment to Bronny next year, then maybe he sticks around. But Doncic, he can't defend. He had in his second game 16 points, 4 assists, 5 turnovers. They lost to Utah by 12, although they had won like 10 of their previous 11, virtually all of them without Doncic, frankly. So I think it's going to take a while to get to play with each other. Uh, Doncic is saying all the right things, but including, rusty, rusty after the first game, rusty, rusty after the second. He hadn't played in a few weeks because he has a calf injury. So this is an interesting trade, not only from superstars, but the one guy that goes over, plays the first game, gets hurt in the third quarter. He's out at least a month, they said, AD. And Doncic missed a bunch of weeks with the Mavs before he came to the Lakers. So look, these guys, you're right. They play tons of games. They play hard. They don't take nights off. But they also get hurt a lot. And AD gets hurt a lot, and he's 31, and Doncic is 25. That's where the Lakers' head is. This guy's our star for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, and good for them. I mean, whatever his problems were in Dallas, and I think a lot of it was money. They knew they were going to have to pay him like 350 million soon. And there are some things, he doesn't play defense. Maybe he's not in the best of shape, in the world. They just maybe just didn't want to pay all that money. There's, if they're tired. Maybe the owners are tired of having the players dictate. Like it's getting crazy in football.
You're
Dak
right.
Prescott, 60 million. And how far away is he from the Eagles? When you pay, I said this in a thing, when you pay a B quarterback A money, you're him strapping your team with the ability to allocate to other resources. And
Did you
you
see
know,
the Dak Prescott interview
I
this
was
week?
gonna, I know we're talking to. I was trying not to transition immediately, but yes, in fact, we can because we want to talk a little Aaron Rodgers. But did you, listen, I like Dak. I think he's a good dude. I think he's an
He's a
adult.
good quarterback. He is. He's a good
He's an
quarterback.
adult in the room. He's a capable quarterback. But what? I mean, he's
Yeah,
like,
you're a
we
championship
beat
team.
them a lot. You beat them a lot. They got outscored 75 to 13 in 2 games last year. I'm not sure what record book he's looking at.
No, he's drinking the Jones Kool-Aid,
I
which is bad.
mean,
Wasn't it Jones who had the real? Wasn't the guy's name Jones who had the Kool-Aid? I
yes.
meant the Jerry Jones Kool-Aid because they've tried to pull the wool over their fans' eyes. America's team for 30 years, they can't get arrested now. When was their last Super Bowl? 95 they won, or 90, 95, I think it was.
95, last time they went to an NFC title game.
They've been bad for 30 years.
30
I mean,
years.
and they still try and sell you this, Jerry Jones, oh, I drafted more all-pro players than
They
anybody. You're
have
right.
had a lot of talent. Well, that doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
that's
You
the
can't put,
problem.
right, right. Because they do draft pretty well, but they couldn't put it together. Yeah, he said
Dak Prescott, I think we can beat them. I think we're a championship team. What is it, since even you've been there, that makes you think they're a championship team? You win 12 games and lose in the first round, or maybe the second. It's like we're trying to, don't look at that man behind the curtain.
right.
'Cause he ain't that good.
Wow. Yeah, I was stunned, stunned.
I didn't want to get off of that because we can go back to it in a minute. I just want to talk briefly about Jimmy Butler, who got his way, as these guys still get their way. I don't know that he puts them Golden State over the top, but it makes them a better
Sure
team.
it does.
And surprise, surprise, now they're 3-0, I think, 3-0 or 3-1. I think they're 3-1 since he got there. And conversely, Miami is 0-4 since he left. There's a sign for you. So Pat Riley knew what he was doing when he tried not to give him up, but you can't make a guy who's unhappy happy. And he must think he makes them a contender. I guess he makes them a contender, but does he make them a championship team? I don't think
I don't
so,
think
but
so
we just
either.
have to see. The other interesting thing, and where did he come from? Your guy Simmons.
Ben
I shouldn't
Simmons.
laugh because look, he played. I got his number yesterday. He's on the Clippers now. They played the Jazz on Thursday last night. And this is a Ben Simmons game. 12 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals. I think he can help the Clippers. I just don't think the Clippers,
That's a
I love
decent line. Yeah,
Kawhi,
yeah.
but I just don't think they have enough. I mean, Powell had 41 points. Everybody forgets how good Powell is, but they beat the Jazz. The Jazz are, not a very good team. In fact, the Jazz beat the Lakers on Wednesday, and they're now 13 and 41. I don't know what happened to them, but but I think the Clippers will be a solid playoff team now. Depending on can Kawhi play, it's Harden. He's still got to beat the. I don't want to say he's the Lamar of the playoffs, but Harden's always had his difficulties, as you know, going back to Philly, of course, in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. I just think it's interesting that Butler got what he wanted, and they're going to be better, and Miami's going to be worse. And Simmons, to me, comes out of nowhere. Where has he been able to play? Didn't he have another back surgery or something?
I haven't even been keeping
But
track of him. I lost track
if
of him.
he's but if he's healthy, he's a plus. And don't forget, he can defend, assuming he still wants to defend. I haven't really watched him play, to tell you the truth. I watched him the other day with the Clippers, and he looked pretty good. He probably has fresh legs,
If he's
Joe.
healthy and he's got fresh legs, he'll be able to help them. But I don't, they're another team that kind of goes nowhere. But
Right.
he's in LA at least. He can go date the Kardashian sisters, whatever he's doing. Um, all right, so I guess back to football. Aaron Rodgers apparently flew in on his own dime to the Jets to see Aaron meet with Aaron Glenn, and Aaron Glenn said, "Yeah, we're not interested in bringing you back." So Aaron Rodgers is without a team right now. Of course, it doesn't mean he wants to play another year. Although since he went back to the Jets, it tells me that he didn't go back there to tell them no. He listened to them. If they said another year, maybe he would have. But he's available, and the question is, does anybody pick him up? Is anyone looking for Aaron Rodgers kind of headaches? I don't know. I don't know what you want to call them.
Well, the team they're talking about is the Steelers. If
Yeah, I
Tomlin
know,
and
because
Rodgers
they're not bringing Russ back.
can they coexist, Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers?
Can they coexist? Well, let's define what coexist means. Will they not get in a fight? Will they not get in a fist fight? Will they not? Eh, uh, I don't know. I mean, he has to be able to help the offense. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think he can still play, but he
Hey,
brings he brings he brings that other stuff with him that it's not good for the culture.
I
I
heard
think
his last 10 game stats were good. I
they were
forget the number.
good. They were
It was
good.
like 20 touchdowns and maybe 18 touchdowns
They were
and
good, but I
maybe.
also I'm a subscriber to a quarterback wins and losses. I think should be on a quarterback too, and they weren't good. I know his team wasn't that good. I mean, they were total collapse because I thought they'd be decent too.
And there'll be another thing. If Rodgers goes anywhere, does he say Devontae Adams has to come with me? Because they weren't exactly on the same page this year. Admittedly, Adams came, middle of the year or
Yeah.
even later. But I don't know. So the problem for the Jets to me is who are the Jets getting? Now I heard Justin Fields was mentioned. Now I don't know if the Steelers are giving up on both Russell
Why,
Wilson
why are
and
we
Justin
why are we
Fields.
picking up on retreads? I mean, can we not go in a different direction if you're the team? Like the
You
Jets,
know,
maybe they're not in a position. I don't know where they draft, but
Let me give you one stat on Aaron Rodgers, which I didn't realize. We all know the passing is getting better and better and better every year. But how about this, Joe? And if you knew this, maybe you did. I did not recognize it. Aaron Rodgers' completion percentage was 63%. Do you know where that ranked him in the NFL with quarterbacks who I think threw more than 200 passes? He was 31st out of 39
wow,
with 63%. Once upon a time, if your quarterback was
that was
63%,
great.
you'd be like, oh my goodness,
That
this
was
guy's.
great.
So I did a little research, and it turns out that this year, five of those 39 quarterbacks, five were over 70%, and Jalen Hurts was sixth at 69.2%.
Yeah, he had a good year.
When did this happen? I know Breeze had those years where he was in the low 70s. I mean, he was incredible, but that's kind of what he was. But to see now, and I think just the notion to me that the guy could be 31st with a 63%, 63% is bad now. I guess it is bad, but
Relatively, but that's pretty good to me.
his QBR, Aaron Rodgers' QBR, the low QBR was 48. So he certainly he had a tough year. He has to go to a place with a good O line. I don't know how good Pittsburgh's O line is. I know their D line is pretty good, but you also only have Pickens. I don't think you have much more in Pickens. If you bring Adams with you, then maybe you've got something to work with. But it's going to be all if Tomlin doesn't like what he do to the culture because if he's skipping skipping mandatory training camp, which I'm sure he won't do. If he takes another job, he won't do that. He's got no juice anymore. It's can he
Right,
do it? So he won't do that. He had juice with the Jets, obviously, and tore his Achilles in the first game, first quarter,
right.
fourth play or whatever it was. But I think he can still play. Do I think he's one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the NFL? I do. But that's up to him and up to the Steelers or anybody else who needs kind of a fill-in quarterback
A
for a year.
feeling. It's
I wouldn't
absolutely
even say two. But the Jets, I don't think, what do the Jets have? I think they have like the seventh pick. They're not getting a quarterback in the draft.
not a heavy
Although
laden
our
quarterback.
guy Kirk Cousins has been mentioned because they obviously want him out of Atlanta and they'll have to swallow some money because Penix is the guy now, right? In
I
Atlanta.
think they're going to go in that direction. Sure, he's their
So
future, so I would.
it's going to be an interesting offseason as it usually is in the NFL. And they still have NFL Live on every day, 5 days a week in, March. But hey, good for them because, there's always something to talk about. But we'll see what happens. I think it's just really interesting. And aren't the Eagles the favorite now? I can't believe they're not the favorite
Yeah,
still.
initially it was the Chiefs, Ravens, and then Eagles, but yeah, by the end of the day, the Eagles kind of slipped up to number one. It's still pretty close to the top, but they have a few things to do in the offseason. They don't have too much money left. Surprise, surprise. But they had like Mekhi Becton, who they brought in he brought him with from the Jets, and he became like an
Unbelievable.
all pro guard, right? And then there was Zach Bond, who was a special teamer for the Saints for 4 years, and they couldn't figure out. They
Incredible.
put him an inside linebacker, and he becomes a star. Even these guys performed in the Super Bowl, like they made plays, like everything how he touched. But there's also who are the other free? Oh, Milton, who caused a fumble. All these guys who actually made plays in the Super Bowl that made a difference, or they're up for free agency. So, but Howie's always good, finagling the numbers and like moving them downstream and kind of getting guys in and still having room to like go out and sign Barkley and which was the key to the season, I believe that he made.
Yeah, well, we'll do some baseball next week, but why don't you wrap up the Eagles for the season because they won it all, they deserved it all. It's one of the most dominating performances, for it to be 40-22. The 22, I don't want to say was fake, but the
It was the
22 was kind of we're beating you 34-0.
I was
But
yeah.
I think it's one of the most, I go back to when the Ravens slaughtered the Giants.
Mhm.
Uh, and it was kind of that bad, except, they scored 14 points in the last quarter, whatever they did in the last quarter. But they had Mahomes look almost nervous, which I don't know that I've ever seen that. And I don't see how their O-line and D-line is really going to change much for next year. And it's true, you win in the trenches. And they won in the trenches. And they did it, frankly, with Barkley getting shut down, although he was valuable because when he gets shut down, that opens it up for a bunch of other people. And don't forget, he had 6 catches for 40 yards. But give us your final thoughts as this parade is starting soon, apparently.
Yeah, it starts at 11 o'clock, God willing, no. I mean, if you remember last year in case we
Yeah,
didn't even talk
yeah.
about it, there were murder, there were two people killed, I think, or one person. That should never happen. There's already been a death at the Eagles NFC title game where the freshman fell off the pole.
On the pole, yeah.
So, it was an unbelievable season. And you think, and if you look back, listen, games happen in the NFL. There was one game when they got their doors blown off, but the other three losses, it was a Saquon drop, which was an easy catch. That's the ball game. It was a Devontae drop, and they would have lost one
One
game.
or two, one or
Yeah,
two at the
one or two
most.
games. That's a pretty good run. And Jalen was 14-0 when he started completed a game, his last 14 games with two turnovers. Um, I'm doing a piece today, apparently, and he never, I have not heard him talk about that game, Super Bowl 57. I've been talking about to anyone who had ears for the last 2 years because I've been
It
so
was
upset
great.
about that game.
It was great.
It's been underneath and boiling and bubbling, and I'm doing a thing on him that even when it was they did the mic'd up thing on NFL, just dropped it the other night, which is great. They have players mic'd up. They did every series. It was really cool. And it's 40-6, and Grant Calcaterra goes over to him and goes, "You can smile now." And he's like, "That that game, that last game that changed my soul. And he's good. And I'm not smiling until the clock reads zero. And it was almost still like he was seething about it. And he talked about it. We talk about this all the time. I like guys. I'd rather have guys in the locker room who hate to lose versus enjoy winning. He's one of those guys. He talks about the pain of that game, and it might be the worst loss in the franchise's history when I looked at it again. And I heard some people talking about that. I think it might have been. Um, he still feels the pain of that loss, and he says it's going to continue to motivate him. Now,
Well, I will say this, Joe, because it's interesting. I think during the game, but even in the past, Tom Brady has always said, I rarely think about the 7 wins. I'm often asked about the 3 losses, two to the Giants, of course, with similar pressure up the middle, like the Eagles were able to do in this win. And and of course, the Eagle he threw for 500 yards and they lost to the Eagles. And then Mahomes also before he lost this game, he said, I think a lot more about my our loss to Tampa Bay than any of the 3 wins we already have. So to his credit, I think, not that he needs these guys to tell him, but Hurts, I would think most star players are going to think more about the losses than the wins. And when you are talking about Super Bowl losses versus Super Bowl wins, that's the highest you can possibly get. Probably in any sport, it's a 1 game deal. It's not best of 7. So I think it probably motivated him, as you said. He had to have some kind of chip on his shoulder because he never got the credit. And now I said, I think he's one of the top 3. You're kind of hearing that now because he did what Lamar hasn't done. What, however good Lamar is, he's great. Um, Allen, he's great. But now those guys have to kind of catch up to Hurts. And I think the Eagles will win another one before either the Ravens or the Bills win one because
I do
they're
too.
going to kill each other in that league, in
Right.
that conference. And then whoever survives. I mean, I think part of the Bills losing to the Chiefs this year, part of it, and it only has to be a small part, was they beat each other up. It's like the old days when Jordan's winning 6 championships. I'm not knocking that at all, but the West used to beat each other up.
Yeah.
Jordan and the Bulls kind of had a free ride through the East. And then when they got to the finals, look, they were the better team. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking away from that. But when you have the other conference that's better and they beat each other up, not better than the Bulls, but the next 4 or 5 teams were always,
Hmm.
Stockton and Malone or whoever
Yeah.
you want to name. So I think it's similar. And once again, once you win one, these guys, I think there's an extra confidence, which is why I think the Chiefs have 3. And part of the reason the Patriots have 6, they had Brady and Belichick for 3, 2 different times. Nobody spanned the 10 years in between. So I think he's put himself, as I said, top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. I wouldn't put him above Mahomes.
No.
Not everybody else. Who else has really won a Super Bowl? I don't know if there's anybody else
And
who's
there's some empirical data. He beat, in my opinion, 5 Hall of Fame quarterbacks this year straight up. He beat Lamar on the road. He beat Joe Burrow on the road. He beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Jaden Daniels a rookie, I get it, but I do think at some point, I think someday
a
he's going to
great
be in the
future.
Hall. And then there was, I mean, Russell Wilson. I know he's not really where he was, but I think he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. So
You're right.
that's
Yeah.
pretty good. You know what I mean? He knocked off everybody except and he didn't play the Bills. But last time they did, he beat Josh Allen last year. That was like their last win before they collapsed. But so he doesn't have any problem going toe to toe with the Giants. And I mean not the New York Giants, the Dragons.
Not the
Yeah.
New York Giants. What?
Yeah, he beat Matt Stafford twice. I mean, who might be, yeah, Matt
He
Stafford
has
probably
a
Hall of Famer,
chance.
right? Yeah. So he did well. I'm glad for him because he got heat a lot this year, and then he would come back. And but I always thought that and I do believe he doesn't really care about his stats. And I thought the coaching staff did a great job after the first 4 games saying we got to scrap this. Because 9 turnovers. He had the most turnovers since the beginning of 2003, any quarterback in the league after 4 games. And he only had 2 since. And they only lost 1 game since the bye when they shifted and said, we're going to be a running team now. And Jalen, we're going to cut him back from 33 passes to 21. That's 1/3 of your passes. And a lot of
Yep.
quarterbacks like to sling it by nature. That's what they do. He was
Yep.
fine with it. And his legs really helped too. If you look what he did against the Rams, that first touchdown against the Chiefs, he gassed him 3 times. Well, he set a Super Bowl record, his own record. You know what I
That's
mean?
correct.
He's
Yeah.
played very well on the big stage, and I'm sure that fumble, as it does for me and the rest of the Eagles Nation, that probably sticks with him. But you know what? It happens. It happens, and there will be others. You know, look at the Chiefs. Imagine being a Chiefs fan and go, "What just happened?" You know, you're at the end of the line and you don't just get nipped or beat, they weren't in the game.
Nope. Not
So
again.
that's what makes football, to me, makes football great. Like that's one of the things you see in the regular season and me and you laugh about it on Monday. Like what happened, it's stuff you can't predict. You just can't predict.
That's right.
But it was a good season. And I think, like you said, there'll be another one before those guys, um, get a ring like Josh or Lamar or so you can again you can have all those stats and whatever, but Jalen has the wins and losses, and Nick Sirianni is now a 4-year head coach. He's been to 2 Super Bowls, won one. He's got the highest winning percent in the league. Like, and people wanted to fire him after the Browns game. So it's funny. It's funny, but he had the last laugh. So, but good stuff, man. It was fun covering with you all year. And of course, we'll keep up on Eagles news as we go along. You can follow Steve on his daily Facebook forum page. Speaking of sports with Steve Kallas, you can follow him on his videos, westchestercountyboast.com, or this podcast on YouTube, as well as all the audio outlets, Apple and Spotify, etc. Follow me at heavy.com or on Instagram at JoeStaszak14799 or on X at JoeStaszak975. Good stuff, my man.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
You too, bud. Enjoy the weekend. I'm gonna go catch the parade.
Cool.
Have a good one, man. I'll see you. We'll catch you on the next week. Appreciate you watching, folks. Have a safe weekend. If you're going to the parade, be safe. Don't do anything stupid, and we'll talk to you. Talk to you next time.